Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. Today we're talking about the U.S. Department of Education moving to cap how much graduate students can borrow. Joining me to tell us more about this is the Center Square's education reporter, Esther Wickham. Esther, tell us a little bit about this new announcement that they've made.
Yeah, thanks, Aliana. So, over the summer, the Trump administration announced that they are going to be changing what Grad PLUS loans look like. And essentially, they are going to be capping them when it comes to professional degrees. Students can take less than $200,000, and other graduate programs that aren't technically considered professional degrees are restricted to $100,000, and this is going to be implemented on July 1st of 2026. So we still have a few more months for the administration to kind of get their things in order to figure out what this cap is actually going to look like. But something that they kind of continue to clarify is this is going to be for students going into the fall of 2026. So all current grad students and all current professional degree students are not going to be affected by this change, by this cap, but it will be implemented next year. And for students that are starting, first year grad school, fall of 2026, they have to kind of keep this cap in mind.
What is the distinction that they're making here between professional degrees and graduate programs, and what's kind of the controversy that's arisen around that distinction?
The administration kind of came out with a list of what, professional degrees entail versus grad, programs. And the controversy around it is that they, in fact, to some people, excluded certain healthcare programs. And, this has drawn a lot of criticism from multiple state officials. And their, question and concern over this is that this could potentially deter students from continuing their education or starting their education. Because, Eliana, like we've talked about, the student debt is rising, tuition is rising, the cost of education is rising. And something that a lot of students are worried about is with this loan cap, are they going to be able to pay for college? The change that has happened with this, definition of professional degrees, there's been a list, but they have, as I said before, excluded certain professional degree programs that I assume were, initially defined as professional degrees. And so, for example, the big one that's been controversial is nursing students, physician assistants, physical therapists, social workers, and then those who are studying counseling, therapy, and speech pathology. And so, these kind of degrees and professions have been considered, professional degrees, something that you have to kind of get higher education to practice and to have a career in. And now that definition has kind of been narrowed. And, this has brought a lot of concern to some people who think that, well, these nursing students who have worked really hard, that, give back to our community, are, not going to be able to get that kind of education they deserve with the administration capping their funding and their loans.
The U.S. Department of Education pushed back against this idea. What was their defense?
Yeah, so after some of that pushback, like I said, they posted this press release that kind of did a line by line item of kind of saying, here's the myth that's been being said and here's the facts. And the Center Square reported just, one example, but when it comes to the idea of nurses having a hard time to, secure federal funding for their programs because, like I said, education is getting more expensive, and specifically, nursing programs are expensive. the myth is that this is going to contribute to the nationwide nursing shortage that we've seen. Healthcare system has had some crises, and how, we're losing nurses. We need more nurses. And the Department of Education kind of came back with a response saying, well, according to the data, actually looking at, nursing programs, how much it costs, how much these nurses actually need for federal loans and funding, 95% of nursing students nationwide already borrow well below the annual loan limit. And so, since they're not considered, professional degrees, which, like I said before, the cap is 200,000. These nursing students are still going to be able to get, the cap up to $100,000. And the administration is clarifying, saying, hey, they have borrowed well below this cap in years past. And so their logical conclusion is that they're not going to be affected by this new cap. And so they think that, other, privatized loans, or even, their own funding on a personal level to get them through the program is going to be enough. And they think that in general, these loan limits, these Grad Plus loan limits, are actually going to incentivize these programs, these graduate nursing programs, to reduce tuition. And I think that's the Trump administration's ultimate goal, as they've said many times. They want to reduce tuition. They realize that this is a crisis. They realize that, education is getting more expensive. And so the president and the Department of Education thinks this is kind of a first step in, well, if we limit the amount of loans students can take out, then potentially we'll see kind of a dip in universities, in grad programs being like, hey, well, we should probably reduce tuition as well, so that these graduate students don't have the major burden of unmanageable debt when they graduate and kind of start their careers. And so that's kind of a main thing that the education department's been emphasizing. They also kind of say there's been a lot of misinformation out there. Ellen Keast, who's the department's press secretary, told the Center Square that, there's misinformation everywhere on social media, that, the actions from the Trump administration are, harming these grad students. And even though, this is still a developing process, and it's not like you're going to wake up one day and everything's going to be changed, it will ultimately, as I said before, drive the cost of these programs down. And also, the nursing students are still going to be able to borrow up to $100,000 in federal student loans, because something that I think a lot of people on the other side don't talk about, as Keist has clarified, is that, they're still considered graduate programs. They've just kind of been excluded from this definition of professional degrees because, as they've said before, the data shows that, well, the majority, almost 100% of nursing students don't even take $100,000 out of loans. So why would they need to be put in the, department or program of professional degrees that would borrow, a spending cap of 200,000? So that's kind of the logic the education department has kind of explained, and it will be interesting to see kind of what people take from that.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't know exactly how they decided which degrees go in which categories, but based off of their response, it seems likely that they're considering things like how much do people already take out in loans, and also what's the earning potential for these different groups, because like a law degree, taking out $200,000 worth of loans, that's a lot. But if you get a high paying job as a lawyer, then it's possible to repay that. So like we don't know exactly what the logic was or what they considered, but it seems likely that they're weighing some of that data and deciding based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that the education department has kind of been super clear on is they kind of want to remove the red tape or the bureaucracy of the federal government kind of, stepping into education. The Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, has said and done, attempted to do this with K through 12 education. And I think also from what they've said, they're also trying to do this in higher education. They want to be really specific and really direct into, okay, what programs, what degrees actually need this kind of funding, actually need the $200,000, because we don't want to just lump everyone together in this one definition where, like you said, lawyers versus a social worker, drastically different pay gaps depending on, your expertise and, the specific field you go in. It could be drastically different how much you're making, and even the state you go to school in, the type of university, whether it's an Ivy League or not. And so that really changes the price. And I think that they're looking at, return on investment. They want to, be very calculated and careful because, student debt is on the rise. Our, federal government national debt is on the rise. And so I think the administration is just trying to be really calculated in their steps to continue to reduce tuition costs for all students, whether it be in undergrad or in professional degree programs.
Well, Esther, thank you for your insights on this story. You can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.